Welcome to OK Smartass. This is the show where we put technology under the microscope. In this episode, Tor did absolutely no work at all and relied on a chatbot. I have no excuse for my ignorance, but I have been vindicated when it comes to flushing my toilet. Now it's time to look at what's happening in technology, innovation, and the gadgets that make our lives so much more exciting. Hi, I'm Patrick Bonello.
And I'm Tor Roxburgh. I'm a writer and a reader and someone who loves change and future-focused thinking. Now, listeners, I was going to stop Patrick talking about a story that has got nothing to do with tech or science, but I found an AI angle.
I'm a journalist. I have a marketing and graphic design business. And Tor, I can't believe you doubted that an 11,000-year-old carving of a man holding his penis didn't have an AI angle.
Did it have a place here? I don't know.
Okay, so this is interesting because it's been uncovered in Turkey and it's believed to be the world's oldest narrative.
Yes, because it's two scenes and they think the scenes are interrelated.
So can we just maybe explain what the scenes are? What I thought was funny is the archaeologists do this dig. They find two blokes standing, carved out. One of them standing there holding his penis, and there are a whole lot of leopards around them.
Yes, two leopards around that bloke, and one of the leopards has got a penis.
Right.
And then the other scene is a man with a bull's head, and I don't think he had a penis.
So it might not have been a man. Okay, look, so what I thought was interesting is you dig this up, you proclaim that it's the oldest narrative seen in human history, and then you don't say what the narrative is.
No, well, they don't know, do they?
Well, they could have made something up, or they could have...
yes.
They could have, okay, so
yes.
You, on the other hand...
I went to the new ChatGPT, which is the OpenAI chatbot, and I asked it to make up the fable. I told it, I described the scenes for it, and it gave us this fable. And it took 8 iterations to get to this because, it kept being a bit dreary. But in the lands of the ancient Near East, 2 powerful hunters named Ekendu and Gilgamesh tamed fierce leopards and a wild bull. Ekendu used his magical phallus to subdue the leopards, while Gilgamesh used his 6-fingered hand to hold the bull in place and a snake to calm it down. The hunters were hailed as heroes and celebrated for their strength and wisdom. The tale of their deeds is a reminder of the power and ingenuity of the ancient people of the Near East.
Right, that's quite tame.
Yeah. Well, I told it to work with the word phallus because I wasn't sure what its language limitations were. And then I asked it to write a limerick about a vagina, and it told me that it couldn't create things, it could only answer questions, and that it wouldn't use explicit and inappropriate language.
Oh, see, that's a shame, because I think that's not an inappropriate language.
No.
So you'd reckon it wouldn't have gone with penis, so you had to go phallus.
Yeah, although I'm not sure about that. You'd have to play around with it for a while. I think it depends on what the question is. I think it probably would be fine if you asked it, there are warts on my penis, what should I do?
See, the thing where I went was that, Monty Python did a whole song about a penis.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a great song. Look it up. It's worth having a listen to.
I think we have to elevate the tone of our conversation in the next few episodes because we've been a bit stuck on genitalia recently.
Well, it's kind of a part of life, but I guess we don't want to focus too heavily on it. No, well, it's an interesting story, though, but I think, as you say, the angle of using this chatbot and this chatbot tech, because during the week, in fact, this morning I was reading an article about a guy who used both AI to write a children's book and also depict a children's book, and he created a story, had it published, and is selling it online, and there are a lot of artists who are saying, well, you're using other people's creative style via these chatbots. And there's a lot of controversy over, whether the artwork being produced is original artwork or is it an adaptation of somebody's own, style or works.
Yeah, look, it's more of an issue at the moment with the artwork than the text. And having used ChatGPT all week, I would say it's pretty bad at fiction, but it's very good at non-fiction.
Wait a minute. So is this whole episode really you, or is it a chatbot that I'm talking to?
It's the chatbot.
Yeah, that's what I
so
thought.
everything that I normally would be, looking up on Google and then going to sites and reading and trying to find the authoritative sites, I just asked the chatbot.
We're screwed because you're the fact checker in this episode. You're the fact checker of OK Smartass.
Well, and I did ask it. The first big challenge was in the past few days, there's been a breakthrough in nuclear fusion, which I know nothing about. So I asked it to explain nuclear fusion to me as though I was in second grade, which it did very nicely. And basically the breakthrough, just briefly for those who are interested, is that for the first time ever, scientists got more energy out of the nuclear fusion than they put in.
Yes.
And the promise is that, this means free and endless energy.
Well, it's not just free and endless, because the thing is, current nuclear power produces so much radioactive waste that has an amazingly long half-life, whereas using this fusion doesn't have the waste that comes with it. So it's actually the holy grail of the idea behind generating the best, safest power available to us. So it sounds pretty amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting stuff. It's only been done in a lab, and we're a long way off actually having power plants that are using this process. But the fact that they could use less energy to create more energy is the exciting thing, isn't it?
And it made me think of Mike Myers and Dr. Evil, because they used lasers.
I have no idea what that reference has to do with nuclear fission.
Well, they used, for the first time, instead of giant magnets.
Or fusion. Sorry, I'm getting fission and fusion confused now.
Yeah, they used lasers. I don't know.
I see. Yeah. Oh, okay. Now, you're claiming all your use at the moment of this new chatbot, this AI chatbot, ChatGPT, is going to replace Google.
Yeah. Well, that's what journalists have been talking about, and having used it all week, I think it will, unless Google decides to, because Google's got Lambda, the one that the engineer thought
was sentient.
Yeah, and needed a lawyer.
But he's since rescinded that.
Has he?
Yeah, he's come back and said no, he doesn't really believe that it's sentient.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think this type of chatbot will replace Google.
Okay, so what did you find in experimenting all week with this chatbot? So if I wanted to do a Google search, what is it that makes this more unique if I was looking for something? Now, you looked up the difference between fission and fusion. Yeah. And why was this better than using Google?
Because it really talks to you like a person. It talks to you like an expert who has put things in plain language for you, and you can ask follow-up questions, and it remembers what it said before, and it remembers what you said before in the conversation. So I could ask it, what's nuclear fusion in 500 words, say, and it'll give me an explanation. And then I can say, look, I didn't understand that. Could you make it suitable for someone who's 8 years old? And it'll do that. And then I can say, can you put that in bullet points? And it'll do that. And I can then say, well, actually, can you just give me the top 3 bullet points? And I don't want any of them more than 5 words long.
Wow.
Yeah.
So really, when I think about it, I'm totally redundant. Because if you can get a voice synthesizer for this thing, why the hell would you sit next to me and do a show when you can do the whole show with a chatbot?
Big problem. We don't know if what it says is accurate. But yeah.
Well, that was what I asked as well, of course, is how, because with Google, I know for myself, and we've spoken about this before, I send articles to Tor, and we exchange articles, and there are some articles that I send you that you find are a bit dubious, that my research areas, and so you then go and look for other verifiable sources. You might actually go back to the original study. Yeah. We can do that on Google, but can we do that with the chatbot? It's relying on old data, so it's 2021 is the amount of data that's been put into. Yeah, that's right.
I think it would be really easily solved. I mean, there could be a button that says show citations. I asked it for citations when I was, and it said, I'm sorry, I'm not connected to the internet at the moment, and my knowledge ends at 2021. I can't help you.
Okay.
It's very polite.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, unlike me. So there you go. There's another thing in its favour. Well,
and I found myself, when I was asking it to do fiction, it didn't feel like a person. because it's not very good at fiction. But when I asked it to do non-fiction, I found myself saying please and thank you because it felt like a person.
Well, you know that my Google Home speaker told me off once for swearing, and I'm still damaged by that. I still hold the grief, and but it's funny how we interact with technology. And I mean, I don't really want to compare it to my dog because I talk to my dog like he understands everything I say. We've got this great chat relationship that's one way, but I know that he takes in every word that I say and saves it for posterity. But the chatbot, I mean, it's interesting that you can talk to a machine and you say it's polite, so you're polite back. And that's an interesting thing, isn't it? And I guess people are mirrors of ourselves anyway, and you know that too. If someone gets angry at you, then the natural reaction is to get angry back, and it's something that's almost instinctive. And so if someone's nice to you, then you want to be nice back to them. And maybe this is just a projection where, you know, looking at the chatbot and kind of anthropomorphizing it.
Yes. Well, it's kind of irresistible. I mean, I'd encourage people to have a play with it.
Does Will need counselling? Does your partner Will feel like he's been left for a chatbot? What?
Well, he probably feels like he's left for devices, but we talked about phones and iPads and things like that, and partners previously.
Now, we've looked at, in many previous episodes, some really interesting AI technology being used by the MyHeritage people. So they're the people that dig back into your ancestry and all that sort of stuff. And so they released this amazing software about a year ago that was able to take an old black and white photograph of a long dead relative and animate it.
Yeah.
And we looked at it, we played around with it. I put a lot of my grandparents into this.
Yeah, whole family.
I basically put my whole family. And me as a child.
Yeah.
That was interesting, seeing me as a kid kind of animated.
Yes.
But now they've gone another step further. So they've done lots of things. They've got created stories. You can do all this interesting stuff. But the latest iteration is really interesting. And what it does is you can put your photo into the system and then be transported and get images back from what you would look like at different times.
Yeah, me as a Viking or, you know, me as an Egyptian queen. And so quite a few of my writer friends have been playing around with this. So I'm seeing lots of visions of friends as Vikings and Do
you, I mean, I noticed that you put your friends in, you didn't put yourself in.
No, I've got a funny little sort of reluctance. It's the same sort of reluctance I've got with 23andMe. Like, I would love to do the DNA analysis, and I'd love to do this also, but I'm kind of reluctant to give them
your DNA.
Yeah, or my image to play around with. It's probably silly of me with the image because my image is already
out there. Go to our website, oksmartass.com, if you want to know what it all looks like. Or you might even be watching this on our YouTube channel because we now we have video of us doing this.
And TikTok. Go for it.
And TikTok. Yeah. So what the hell?
What am I thinking?
I don't know what
Crazy.
you're thinking.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to bring a sample pipette with me next time.
You didn't do it. You haven't done it yet?
No. Well, actually, going back to the MyHeritage thing, you know, the DNA, going back and find. No, I haven't done that. No, okay. I'm thinking of giving it to my brother for Christmas. My twin brother, because then I'd have to do it for myself because we're genetically identical. So if he does this, I can pay for him to do it. It means I get rid of one present and then I just have to look at the results and take a copy of them and then I've got the results for me.
Fantastic.
Isn't that a good idea? That's the present that keeps giving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's another one, Lensa, that is giving you sort of cartoony versions of yourself.
Yeah, this one I'm in two minds about this. It makes some. I'm concerned, and I'm going to go back one step. I'm concerned about the use of any sort of filtering when you apply it to things like Instagram. So sometimes you see people put the glamour photos of themselves that have been artificially touched up.
Yeah.
What does that say about how people want to... I mean, we always want to represent ourselves in our best light. So this morning I put on clothes because I knew we were doing the podcast. And I put on aftershave and I put I thought it was a nice top and I've got, you know, I'm wearing relatively neat clothing, right? And I know that you've got a nice necklace on.
Necklace?
Yep, don't go to our YouTube channel. No, but you know what I'm saying? So we do try to represent ourselves the best way we can. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I'm not getting rid of wrinkles. You know, they're just there. You know, I have no hair. So I'm not wearing a wig. Where does our vision of ourself in terms of what we do and are proactively doing to make ourselves look different or look better potentially by wearing nice clothes, where does the line get crossed when we get AI to change what we look like and glamorize us and then put that out there in the world?
I don't know. I have two thoughts about it, and one thought is that we are still evolving culturally in our relationship to social media, and maybe the problems that people are having, or especially young people, about seeing false images and not reading them as false and then feeling bad about their own appearance. Maybe that'll pass as we digest the social media experience a little further. But then maybe the other option is maybe we can look any way we want soon with kind of easy body changes, genetic editing and things like that.
Oh, I see. So you actually would go in there and get treatment. I mean, I would.
Well, I wouldn't, because I'm quite happy as I am. But I mean, maybe our feeling that that's dangerous and a problem will change if you could edit your genes and change your phenotype whenever you felt like it.
Oh, that's really creepy. I do know from personal experience. So my first job working in radio, I worked in promotions.
Yeah.
And so as part of the promotions team for 2 years in a row, I was Sid the Seagull. And I danced on the beach promoting. Wait, come on. It was an important message that Sid the Seagull had.
Slip, slop, slap.
Slip, slop, slap. Exactly.
Yeah,
so I was a large bird, not dissimilar to Big Bird.
Yeah.
And you put a costume on somebody and all their inhibitions go.
Yeah.
Like all the inhibitions go. Suddenly you just play up to the role. And I had so much fun, except when a mate came up to me and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, Patrick." And I said, "How did you recognise me?" He said, "Oh, your legs." I'm still suffering from that one. No. So I know that it can release a different part in inhibitions. And look, that's why cosplay is so popular.
Yes.
So many people take part in cosplay because it's so much fun. And I've heard of people having weddings with themes, cosplay.
Yeah.
Someone recently told me that they were going, I think it might have been Kryal Castle, which in Victoria, in Australia here, is a fake castle that was built in the 70s.
Well, our castles tend to be fake.
We don't have any real castles here. And having been to Europe, you kind of drive past and snigger. But, Kryal Castle was very popular and it still does attract tourists. But people now go there and have theme weddings where they dress up in that genre and get married.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Getting dressed up is so much fun.
Yeah.
The best two parties that I ever hosted at my place, and I know you attended at least one of them, was parties where people get dressed up and everybody got dressed up, wasn't it? Not one single person who attended didn't get dressed up. What did you get dressed up as, Tor?
I'm not saying, because I think that we have to steer off that. Anyway, look, I went to a themed party last weekend.
Yeah,
70s. Yeah, it was really fun. Thanks, Hamish and Wendy.
Can you publish the photos? I haven't seen any photos.
Oh, I didn't have my photo taken.
How could you be at a party and not have your photo taken?
I know.
Oh, no. Maybe we could just get dressed up for the show.
Yeah.
Can we have a chat on a more serious note about the whole idea of social media impacting young people?
Yeah.
And also, we tend to take an older person's view and we project that on to younger people. So there's a suggestion in terms of online safety that young people online have a totally different mindset about what should be happening online and the regulations that are in place. And a lot of young people think that we have absolutely no idea what's going on and we're totally ignorant to the whole thing.
And that all our suggestions are really
dumb because they've come from old people.
And not going to help at all.
Yeah. And see, I am very much about empowering young people to make decisions for themselves, because we know that the teenage brain is actually very different than an adult brain. And so sometimes the trivialities that adults project onto young people, we see something comes up and the person's worried or upset about something. You say, well, that's ridiculous. Don't be so worried about that. Yeah. But we're not looking at it through their lens.
Yeah.
Maybe we're not even capable of looking through their lens because we're not that age. Yeah. We're not 14 or 15 or 16. And so we can't really understand what they're going through.
Yes, I think this article was interviewing young people about what would help them online and what suggestions from adults would be helpful and what weren't. And, it's not so dissimilar to our experience as teenagers. Like, often parents' suggestions for, well, just don't do X, Y, or Z are not helpful.
Mm.
It's still the case that an open inquiry and an open conversation with a young person is more helpful than just telling them what they should and shouldn't do.
So it's about listening and not talking.
Interesting.
A lovely friend of mine who since has passed away had a lovely saying, and she said, "You've got one mouth and two ears.
Yeah.
So you should be doing twice as much listening as talking."
Yeah. Hard when you love the sound of your own voice, like us.
Oh, okay.
No, us, not you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. So getting out of that little realm for the moment.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time this morning trying to play around with green screen so that when we're doing our video stream, people will see a really interesting Hubble Space Telescope. They'll see a really nice Hubble Space Telescope photograph behind us, which is a nebula, a spiral nebula. And it got me thinking that green light is now supposed to be really good for you.
Yeah, apparently it relieves pain.
How interesting is that?
It just sounds absolutely bogus, but it's not.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, well, did you read into this story?
Not deeply. I just basically, reading the story, it's to do with the cones in your eye, directing the light to a particular place in your brain that modifies your sense of pain.
Well, the amazing thing is that it's simple, it's safe,
cheap,
and it's cheap. Yeah, it's certainly economical. So if this can relate, this is amazing. That potentially, and that this again, it comes down to animal studies. And that's
mice again, Patrick?
I think mice, everything's been sold for mice, hasn't it?
Yeah,
the new mouse study. So these
Poor
neuroscientists, I think in Shanghai, have been doing this research. I guess it would be an interesting enough experiment to kind of do yourselves. I actually can change the lights in our studio to green, which I've just done now. So if we stay green for the rest of the episode, maybe it'll reduce the pain.
Who knows what it does to your background.
Or maybe our listeners need the green light to get through it.
So they put people under this light for 8 hours, which is obviously not going to be practical if you need it for treatment. But they are working on seeing whether a shorter exposure can be long-lasting, and they think so. They think it can last for up to 4 days after your treatment.
So this part of the brain has neurons that fire off, and they express a hormone that they think are important as part of the pain signalling process.
Oh, great.
So that's how it works.
Oh, marvellous. You think about how much ill health pain, chronic pain causes.
Oh, and also the chemical substance problems that people have if they're, people can be on pain medication for years and it has such adverse effects. So if you could simply expose yourself to green light. You know what's interesting though? How do you feel when you're walking through a lush green forest?
Yeah. I wonder if that's relevant.
Yes.
Oh, Patrick.
I don't know. I'm just drawing a very long bow.
Kind of made an interesting connection there.
There you go. And who says I don't have the foggiest?
Okay, gold on glasses.
Yes, to relieve fog.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was a segue. It was a very loose segue.
Yeah.
This new nanotechnology has been developed that uses gold inside the lens to stop it from fogging up. Now, you wear glasses.
I do.
And this is a problem. And with
Huge.
face masks, I mean, COVID,
So
I felt
annoying.
sorry for all the people who wear glasses during COVID. I had sunglasses. I always wear sunglasses because I have an issue where my optometrist said that I have to wear sunglasses outdoors all the time. Okay. So I'm not a creepy person who just walks around with sunglasses all the time. No, I've got actually sunburn damage to the whites of my eyes.
Really?
Yeah, so there you go. So I do have to wear sunglasses. However, this is interesting that the fogging up is something that I've not really encountered. But you're saying that this is a major problem.
Yeah, big problem. So it was horrible during COVID, obviously, but it's also a problem with safety equipment. So, as you know, my partner Will's a sculptor. You're meant to wear goggles for almost everything. He wears glasses. The glasses fog up. He can't see. So the safety goggles actually kind of make it in a way more dangerous.
Yes.
But with this gold lining, which uses infrared light to sort of warm the glasses.
Yes, this tiny, narrow... Now, keeping in mind, gold leaf, you know how thin gold leaf is? This is 12 times thinner than gold leaf.
Yeah.
So it's you actually can see through it. And that's amazing.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I love it.
can't wait for them.
And you could get them on the front of your windscreen.
Yes,
and then it wouldn't fog up. So basically any light hitting it will heat it up, and the temperature difference means that it doesn't fog up.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really
And
good.
talking about plumes of fog.
Yes.
Well,
Tell us
spray.
about the toilet.
I feel
Patrick.
very vindicated.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ryan, who listens to our podcast, we talk about Ryan, who's the rocket scientist, aerospace engineer, and we reference him a lot. So he gave me a Mythbusters book many years ago, and in it talked about the spray plume that happens when you flush your toilet.
Right.
Okay, so you flush your toilet, and there's a massive plume of spray, like
How
little particles.
revolting.
Well, now there's been a study, so evidently your toilet spews out this invisible aerosol plume every time you flush. And now what they did was they actually captured it using high-powered lasers. Lasers
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And green lasers.
Okay.
So, and look, you can't see it obviously because it's a podcast, but there's this amazing photograph of a toilet
With all this green spray.
Now, people have laughed at me because I always make sure my toilet seat's down before I flush, and I don't leave my toothbrushes and anything that goes in my mouth outside in my bathroom. They always go inside the cupboard. And now I feel vindicated.
Yeah, well, you're right.
It
I
goes
think
over
you're
a
right.
metre. So every time you flush your toilet, this plume of stuff travels 1.5 metres above the bowl within basically 6.6 feet per second, and or 2 metres per second it travels.
Amazing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So are you now putting the seat down to flush?
The last couple of days since I read this, I have been, but I have to change my habit because I forget sometimes.
I mean, look, let's face it, no one's getting sick all the time.
I've been
from
all right
this, but
so far.
You have,
yeah.
But it's, it's a bit of advice. We don't often give advice on the show, do we?
No, I don't think so.
A little bit.
Do we?
Yeah. I think inadvertently.
Neuralink, Patrick, Elon Musk's
Oh, so interesting.
chip in brains company.
Well, they're saying it could be 6 months away.
Yes,
But they've got a big slap on the hand because... So this has been pushed by Elon Musk. He's a real proponent and he's been researching it, I mean, actively, as in putting money towards research teams that are looking at using Neuralink to be able to control computers and whole lots of things by implanting a chip in our brain. But there's now a suggestion...
Reuters.
It was an article that came out recently suggesting that Neuralink is under federal investigation of gross animal abuse.
Yeah. Too many experiments, too much pressure, allegedly, from Musk to hurry up and have breakthroughs, too many animals dying and suffering.
And they're not releasing that information. The thing is, the Neuralink investigators are not saying how many animals have been used, how many animals have been killed. And, it's all nice to think how great would it be if we had this, and this. But the reality of it is, if you're using cosmetics and you don't know the origin of the testing for these cosmetics, a lot more companies now are happily saying that they're animal safe. And I think that's really important. But with tech, it's great to think that this neural technology could be used to help people, but where do we draw the line?
I just think, would you want a chip in your brain from a company that was a bit slapdash with its experimental animals?
I know. Well, the other thing too is, what really concerns me is, for example, if you buy a Tesla, they charge you more for certain features. So, for example, they have this subscription thing where you can get if you wanted to have autopilot, you've got to actually pay more for it.
Yeah.
So it's tech in the car, but they can switch it on and switch it off.
Yeah.
And so could you imagine having Elon Musk's chip in your brain, and if you've run out of, you've overspent for the month, so you have to be less smart for the next month.
Yeah, wow. It's a whole different world coming, isn't it, really?
So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can automatically see the benefits of this sort of tech being used for people who might be paralysed. They're talking about people who are blind potentially being able to use this interface to be able to see again.
Yeah.
So there's certainly, it is a bit of a a major leap forward to help people and to solve a lot of issues, whether it's accidents and or diseases that have ravaged people.
Certainly Musk's companies get a lot of attention, but there are other people doing all sorts of interesting work, and the article mentioned Synchron, which has already got ahead of Neuralink in that it's got FDA approval to test its product on people with motor neuron disease, ALS, and they're doing a different route. They actually started in Australia, but they're now headquartered in New York, and they've been funded by the US military, which is an interesting aspect. We'll get back to that, but their approach has been, how do you get into the brain? Well, you can cut the skull open and you can insert things, but there's already a path into the brain via the vascular system.
Right. So use the existing system and follow the vascular system to the part of the brain you want to go to.
Yeah, and they've also adapted existing well-tried technology in that people regularly have stents in their vascular system to open up blood vessels. So they've redesigned that with sensors that can pick up brain signals, and they're already with paralysed patients getting them able to use text, send SMSs through brain sensing.
Yeah, so that's right. So there's a lot of hope there, isn't there?
Yeah.
For when you know of people, and we have known of people firsthand who have lost the ability to move their bodies, and this could be an amazingly liberating way for them to live out a part of their lives where they're stuck. In bed or in a chair. Yeah. So look, I'm still in two minds. I find some of it really creepy and scary, and I don't like the idea of it being in private company hands because I don't know what sort of regulations. And we're now seeing the FDA is investigating Neuralink because of the way they've treated animals. And like you, I don't think I'd be the first with my hand up to get a chip implanted in my brain. I don't think I would actually get a chip implanted in my brain full stop if it wasn't for urgent medical treatment.
I would, because I've read this brilliant science fiction series.
Wow, that's got something to go by. Okay.
How you can get language chips.
Wouldn't it be good to be able to
just pop in a Russian or a
Chinese or that'd be
Indonesian,
kind of cool. And just speak it fluently.
Yeah. I asked the chatbot about why the military might be interested in brain chips.
What did it say?
Well, apparently it could enhance soldiers' ability. It could be really good for communication with soldiers.
Oh, so you can communicate faster.
Yep. Controlling weapons systems.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, that's got implications for gaming. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Medical applications, and also to help brain injured soldiers.
This is amazing, this chatbot.
So thanks, chatbot.
Wow. Tor's new best friend, by the way. I've been replaced by a chatbot. I have been reflecting with all of the stuff that's been going on with the Artemis mission.
Yes.
And there's been lots of really fun space stories that have kind of come back up again. And it's been about 50 years exactly to the day that the very first iconic photograph, not the first one, but the most iconic photograph ever of the entire Earth was published. So NASA astronauts who got far away from the Earth. So keeping in mind, we've had over 500 people go to space, but they're on the International Space Station and all of the shuttle missions were never far enough away to see the entire globe. So it's really just the Apollo astronauts that went to the moon were able to see the entire globe, as a marble floating in space. So in 1972...
Like we see a full moon.
Yeah. So in 1972, this iconic photo was taken. And what I love is that I think 3 or 4 astronauts on board the mission, none of them will actually reveal who took the photo. I love that.
That's nice.
So there's this ambiguity as to whether or not and who or whoever took it. But I love the idea that it has, people going into space, their entire perspective changes. We quoted William Shatner recently when this is the captain of Star Trek, the Captain Kirk from Star Trek. He went into space briefly on one of those tourist-funded missions. But the reality of it is that this iconic globe of the world, the blue marble it's called, has inspired the first environmental movement. What they're saying is that view of the Earth in its entirety from space, seeing the blue oceans, the browns, the white clouds, has inspired generations of people wanting to protect the beautiful planet that we've got. And that's what I guess the blue marble is such an iconic image that everybody knows it's the inspiration to protect our planet.
Yeah, I think that's overselling it a bit. But
what?
I think we're all capable and have kind of an interest in protecting the planet and world peace and all those things without seeing that photo. But it is a beautiful photo.
Oh, so I've been shut down.
Crushed.
God.
Crushed.
I think I need a chatbot AI friend because I'm sure your chatbot would be much nicer to me than you were. Yeah, I still love it. And look, do look it up. I mean, I can't imagine that any person on the planet who has access to technology hasn't seen that image, whether it be on a poster, on a billboard. And what I love about NASA's imagery, we've spoken about this as well, is that they make it all available.
Yeah.
Which I love it. We've got a Hubble picture sitting behind us at the moment if you're watching our video stream.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it? You've been listening to OK Smartass, the podcast, brought to you by a nerd and a smartass. Have we ever identified who's who?
No.
No, I don't think so.
No, I thought that you're both.
I'm Patrick Bonello, and you can contact us by visiting our website at oksmartass.com or email nerds@oksmartass.com.
I'm Tor Roxburgh. If you like getting suggestions for books, podcasts and viewing, you can find my newsletter via Facebook and Instagram. We'll see you again in the next episode. If you'd like to help the show, please tell a friend, share a post online, or take the next step and support us via Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/OKSmartass to sign up.
And thank you to our Patreon supporters and our listeners who get in touch. If you like what we do, make sure to hit the subscribe button and share with your friends.